Hi, very good morning. It's June from maverickstar Observatory. Monday, one of the worst days in the week for some people. They've got to get up for work and do that mundane task from Monday to Friday, and they know the whole week is ahead of them. Saturday I did a video and I put it up on YouTube for you guys, to comment on how we could change things here at the Observatory, and maybe you could come up with an idea which is better than the one we're using right now to try and raise some revenue for the Observatory. And what we got was, pretty much 100 odd comments just whinging about the fact that I spend so much time, talking about raising money. And you should read some of these. I'll just read a few off. I know it's going to be out of sync with the video, so the audio will be slightly off. But, if I just scan through some of these comments, you can go back and see which ones I'm talking about. So you claim CO2 to be a trace gas, doesn't affect the climate in any way, but then you claim the hashtag first marker for fucking impending glacial period is CO2. Mental you are. And this is the problem. You talk about technical things with people and they just don't understand. Because what I'm trying to say is CO2 doesn't drive the climate, because we know temperature rises before CO2 does. And CO2 is a trace gas in our atmosphere, measures 0.04%. And that's not the man-made amount of CO2, that is just the total amount. So it's a very small amount, it's less than 0.5% of the actual gases in our atmosphere. And yet it does have a significant indication, which I pointed out in the last video I did, and anyone that follows what I'm talking about will know that what I'm saying by hair trigger litmus test is exactly what it is. Because we know if we start to see CO2 drop, that we've already had the best of the warmest weather. And I demonstrated not only by viewing CO2, if we see it dropping off, there was other litmus tests we could do, and it's just down to everybody. How much will it take before you're satisfied with the facts? We can use CO2, it being a very trace gas, not much of it, so you don't need to see other gases being affected in our atmosphere. Like if nitrogen started dropping at that same rate, we probably would have to wait a lot longer to see those changes. But CO2 is just a very small amount, and if we start to see that drop in the atmosphere, there is your litmus test. That's your air trigger. And that's why I said if we see CO2 dropping, we are on the money. We know that a glacial period is likely to be following. But that wasn't the only litmus test I give. The other one was the rebounding Arctic ice. For the last 10 years I've showed you guys the Arctic ice is rebounding. Mainstream media aren't covering any of these things. I haven't heard one single climatologist talk about using CO2 as an air trigger litmus test to prove that climate is actually cooling and not heating up. We have at the Observatory got atmospheric CO2 detectors, and for the last year I've not only showed you, but I've archived the data on the website so that you can see it yourselves. We've seen it drop. Mainstream media haven't mentioned that once yet, and neither have your so-called climatologists. And then there's the third litmus test we've presented, and that is the historical record based on core samples at different locations around the world. And I think the one we use is the Vostok. And there we go. We know that we're at the end of an interglacial period. So what comes next? This is what I said. Give the child a red crayon when you were looking at that chart and just ask him to finish off the pattern. The kid will finish off the very simple pattern because it's not a complex pattern. That's called a cycle. something we can recognise happens time and time again. And that's why I said, put the crayon in the kid's hand, 4-year-old's hand, and it will complete the pattern. Yet we've got 90% of the 60,000 viewers or people that subscribe to this don't seem to put the pieces together. Don't seem to, even though you give 3 solid facts, can't put the picture together. This is what I'm saying. When we're dealing with the human condition, that's what we're dealing with. You can give a human being all the logic in the world, but it won't act on it, and that's where our major problem is. That's the problem human beings have on this planet, is we don't act logically. The majority of these comments, in any case, come from the people that are wound up by the governments charging them extra taxes, allowing energy companies to drive up the prices to the point that where they are now 3 times higher than what there was a year ago. And as a result of that, it doesn't take much science. You don't need a scientist to tell you this, that if you drive up energy costs, you drive up everything else. The farmer has to put fuel in his vehicle. If the vehicle now runs on fuel costing twice as much as what it did 12 months ago, guess what? Your potatoes, your carrots, your fruit, your salads, and your dairy products and your meat products are going to double in price, aren't they? Well, you come along here, you 90% of the people, or 99% it looks, well, it is that. Yeah, because these 99% of them 60,000 people don't chip into this observatory. They come for the freebies, and when the freebies are threatened, they get all hoity-toity about it. They want to kick off with me. They're not going down to the local member of parliament or their Congress members. They're not going to them at all. They're coming to me because I'm an easy target. They're sitting there in their armchair, and it's so easy to bang away at that keyboard and have an attack on me, when the reality is, by doing that, you'll achieve nothing at all. I put it out there for people to come up with ideas where we don't have to talk about things like raising money for this observatory here. Some people just don't get it. If we was already raising enough money to cover things at the observatory, would we be coming back every single day mentioning it? Come on. Again, the human condition just doesn't think logically, and neither do these people. Usually I just delete all the comments. I'm just going to leave them up there, but you know what? It's one after the other. One after the other. Stop asking for money. Stop asking for support. And guess what? We do that and nobody donates, and guess what? We're no longer in business in providing a service for those people that genuinely are interested and can benefit from it. I've showed you charts of what this Earth is going to look like in the not too distant future, and because you live in one of them regions covered in ice and snow, and you're fucked, and yet you're doing nothing about it. Again, it's the human condition. I have noticed this. I bet you lots of other people that work with the general public notice this, is that the general public are being abused in the way they are. It's because they allow it to happen. They are always the types that say, you know what, we can budget ourselves a little bit more this week, my dear. And you can imagine the kids are sitting around the table, and dad's now threatening to take away the lollipops from the kids because he's too yellow and too much of a coward to stand up and do something about it. He'll take the kids' lollipops away before he'll do something. Or he'll come along to a channel like this where someone's trying to help him and he'll have a good go at them. That's what we're dealing with. And we have got 99% of the people that subscribe to this channel behave like that. And I tell you now, if you're one of the few people that have donated to this channel and the research in which we conduct, you are one of the very few. Trust me. These people that complain are total idiots. I've got to say that. Because they're not taking the argument to where it needs to go. They would rather, like I say, cause trouble in other people's comment section. And then, you know what, it makes me laugh, because they're not going to other YouTube channels and taking the argument up with them, and yet these other YouTube channels don't have zero equipment. They're not monitoring the atmospheric oxygen or the atmospheric CO2. They're not bringing to you Earth Alpha at a glance like we did on Saturday, where you can see the active erupting volcanoes around the world. You can see the latest earthquake magnitude. You can see Arctic ice extent. You can see the Schumann resonance. You can see the latest magnetic pole position. You know, we've got magnetometers in a few countries where that data comes back. We've got muon detectors in a few other countries where that data comes back. No other YouTube channels does that. No other YouTube channel has a dedicated website which regularly informs you of what's going on this very blue planet that you live. No one. And you know what? We don't script a diddly squat on this channel. We're not going just to other people's websites and listening to the regurgitated rubbish that is put out there by mainstream organisations, because if we did that, we would not know that CO2 had in fact dropped in the last 12 months. You know, we wouldn't know the magnetic North Pole position, because you can't get that information anywhere else. And yet the things that we have done and built and collected the data from is just totally unappreciated. This is what you have to accept when you work with the general public. You know, we do it for those very few people that are genuinely interested in their own well-being, first of all, and, you know, interested with the changes that are taking place with our planet. We've got 3 major anomalies. We are currently going through a magnetic reversal on our planet. It's a rare event. Last time it happened 780,000 years ago was the last completed magnetic reversal. 750,000 years ago, and then an event comes back in our day and time where we live right now and starts to happen again. That's a rare event, and yet gets no coverage. Second one is the grand solar minimum. Why isn't this being talked about on mainstream more than what it is? And why more so is the implications of this grand solar minimum not being talked about on mainstream media? Why are all the people misinformed or not even informed? And then the third one is the returning of a glacial period. 3 major anomalies that have come back that, you know, when we're talking thousands of years ago, these are rare events. This isn't like an earthquake. This isn't like a volcanic eruption, because these, according to, you know, the data we collect, are regularly occurring. These things aren't. You know, these are in a different category of their own right, and rightfully so, because these are mega disasters that haven't happened yet. You know, in Europe this weekend there's been reports of, you know, a heat wave. I guarantee you, I'm going to stop. You know what, you know, these mainstream organisations classify these people as sheep, and they act like sheep. You know, if they've came along to this website and this channel and they've heard me say, don't go out in that sun because you're 25% more likely to get skin cancer, or all of a sudden have a heart attack due to cardiac arrhythmia failure, they'll still go out and do it. You know, you can't believe sometimes the human condition. And not only will they do it, but, you know, the dearest thing to them, they'll allow go outside and do it as well. The children. This is what we deal with. We deal with people with no common sense, and it's, you know, I'm not surprised they've been abused by these organisations, mentally abused them in the way that they have, because they've been slow boiled. That's a process of getting what you want out of someone gradually. You know, I've heard the terms they use: slowly catch the monkey, before the monkey realises it is in a cage. That's people today, because they don't act logically on the information they get. I know for a fact that there's people watching this video today and have been following me for a long time. They know they're in a hot zone where they shouldn't be, and they're going to be there right to the end, and they're going to go down with the rest of the people when they know they had a heads up. These people, at the end of their day, cannot go crying to God when they finally get to them pearly gates and say, where was the help? If you came along to this website or this channel and you saw the data and you failed to act, that's your own failure. That's your own doing. Trust me, don't blame anybody else other than yourself. Look in the mirror, because what you see was what caused all this trouble for yourself. Simple as that. I could go on and on and on with these comments. I've seen all this stuff before. It doesn't really bother me usually. I get the gist of what someone's saying, I delete it. I will say this, there is at least 1 or 2% of these comments which are worth reading, and they come from very intelligent people, and they're not ashamed to help and support. But what I was trying to say the other day is like, help me out here, because I don't even like having to say, can we do something about raising a few bucks there? Silicon photo multipliers coming at £115 to us, and we're lucky if we can purchase them off the company, because they like to sell them in the thousands, and therefore, if you're buying them in those quantities, then the price comes down. But if you're buying individual ones, then it's expensive. We've done as best as we can. We didn't listen. We wouldn't have the Trimax system, full stop. If we would have went to another company and asked them to build it for us, we couldn't ever afford to do that. But what we did was take out the time to learn, teach myself how to program electronics. And that's how we ended up with the Trimax system. If we'd have went to a company and we had plenty of money, it would have cost about £250,000. Because people don't understand what the processes are of building prototypes like that. You go to a company, you've got to have electronics engineers, which are on like 50, 60,000 a year, project managers, 100,000 a year. When you go, you've got to pay for tooling. They're gonna make probably 6 test prototypes before they hand over something, and then they're going to tell you still that it's a prototype. What we did is we built something pretty unique. Right, first of all, the master sits in the back room while the slave in the loft, where all the equipment, the measuring equipment is, that transmits that data wirelessly. I wanted it to do that so that we didn't have to run cables to the equipment. It will transmit it up to 1 kilometre in good conditions. Doesn't have to be, like it is 20 metres away or so. And it's worked, touch wood, it's worked perfectly for the time it has. Good 3 or 4 years now of data we've had up on the website, and again archived for you guys. We had to pay the company that hosts our website extra money for the the fact that we're archiving this data for you guys. We also had to pay extra because of the traffic that goes there. And do you know what? There's no advertisements on poleshiftnews.com, none. And we can't get advertisements off YouTube because they say that the content is unsuitable for the community. And I mean, do you regularly hear me swearing and bawling? I mean, I've said it's not suitable for children because they would find an excuse for the videos for them not to be viewed. So we don't have no juveniles visit and have source to the data because of that. So we're getting shot left, right and centre, and then we have to deal with the general public coming along making their mindless comments on this. And then we have mainstream organisations heavily bombarding the general public with the brainwashing on these matters, and in some cases they don't even tell people. So When I say we are a speck of light in a vast darkness, we really are, and we're up against every other corner of that darkness on a daily basis. And you know what? Even the people trying to help are stabbing us in the back. We were supposed to today on the 17th do a pole shift news update for you guys. We're always trying to set the record straight so that we can get some kind of understanding back from you guys. You know, but the amount of people that are willing to help is very small. And that's because they've got a mental problem. It's called the human condition. Something that, you know, you can't hold people accountable for because it's just the way human beings think. I've realised that now. I wonder how many other people out there have seen that. Human beings fail to act logically. That'd be interesting to know. All being well, tomorrow, guys, we'll do a Earth Alpha, not an Earth Alpha at a glance. We'll do the latest poll position. But let's just see whether, you know, some people understand what I'm talking about. Let's just see. We'll mention the link once right now. There's a link down there in the description. If you're interested in helping an observatory which has got your best interests at heart, doesn't go around, you know, scripting the information, providing, you know, jazzy looking backgrounds and what do they call it in this community? Content. It's not so much interested in the content, but more about the facts for you guys. If you're interested in supporting something like that, there's a link down there. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. You know what, guys? I think I'll say what I usually do, you know, at this point. You have a good day. Hope it's a good day, a good start to the week for you. Take care of your loved ones, as always. Bye for now.